We are very pleased to welcome this afternoon Michelle Curry and Tom Gill. Michelle just celebrated her four-year anniversary as Executive Director of Brooklyn, Stockyards, and Clark Fulton. Michelle oversees programs that serve mothers, young people, adults through adult education, as well as early childhood. She comes with a rich history as a longtime director of Head Start for Catholic Charities after having served in other roles at Catholic Charities. She is a proud graduate of LEAD 14, and she currently is an LC2 Fellow. Tom Gill has been president of Urban Community Schools since 2017. He just celebrated his 10th anniversary with Urban Community School. Prior to becoming president, he served in a number of different roles there, and he successfully led a $20 million capital campaign. He is the ultimate collaborator. Here's a few organizations that he has collaborated with to build the strength and deliver greater impact to his children. Urban Squash, U.S. Lacrosse, The Foundry, Facing History, Refugee Response, and Metro Health. He also is the innovative thinker behind the House of Champions. He has chaired boards of Neighborhood Family Progress and Refugee Response, and he is an alum of Cleveland Leadership Center, having been a Cleveland Executive Fellow in the class of 2010. We're proud to welcome Michelle and Tom, and thank you for your time. We look forward to hearing all about the impact of the pandemic on the people that you serve and how you are each approaching reopening your facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann, for that awesome introduction, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of the Way Forward Leader Lunch Break. It's my pleasure to share what we have done here at Merrick House and what we are doing as we reopen this week. So as the pandemonium started to erupt in March and the schools were closed on March 13th, we immediately stopped all of our youth services and began to make a plan to send staff home that were able to work remotely that next week. And then we received an email from the state of Ohio asking if we would be interested in obtaining a pandemic license. Of course, we saw the email, and as I consulted with my EC director, I'm like, okay, a pandemic license, let's see what this is about. And after we read into it and made a phone call to the state and asked a couple of questions, decided immediately, let's move forward with it. It's best to move forward to prepare ourselves. And if it's something we decide that we can't or don't want to do, we'll rescind it later on. So when we found out the intent of the pandemic license, that it was to truly support first responders, be they in the medical field, police, fire, any essential staff, we felt that it aligned with our mission here at Merrick House, and also it allowed us the ability to support many of the families that we have here that are either essential or first responders. So we immediately moved forward with applying for the pandemic license and were approved. We found out we were approved March 19th. Now, during that time, a lot of things were still up in the air. We didn't know about ratios. We just didn't know all of the requirements that were going to come down as a result of that. But we were willing to stand for the charge. I want to say that one of the most important things that we did in this piece was we met with our staff because we couldn't do this without the buy-in and support of the teachers and assistant teachers, the ECE staff. So we had a heart-to-heart conversation with them, letting them know that this was the avenue that we were going to take, asking if they were supportive, and allowing them the platform that if they were not supportive, that they could come to either Lori and I and have individual meetings so that they could discuss their concerns. Assured them that we would do everything we could to keep everyone safe, and that I felt that as Merrick House and our mission, we had an obligation to do this. We were met with resounding support. No one said they didn't want to do it. All of our staff were on board. When the license, ODJFS license switched from, I think it was the 23rd and then the 26th, we went into the pandemic license. We opened. I have to be honest, things were really, really slow. Very, very slow that first week into the second week. And I was considering closing, really was considering closing. But just felt like we needed to hold on another week. And sure enough, when that third week rolled around and the governor extended the stay-at-home order, it was like the phone started ringing off the hook. So we went from like 6 children the first 2 weeks into the third week onto the fourth. We ended up with 21 children at our center, 9 of which were new to Merrick House. New to Merrick House, that we received phone calls, quickly got them in, got the paperwork filled out, did tours, and we went through the entire pandemic piece until things ended on Sunday the 31st with 21 children enrolled. Last week, what we did was we did shut down for 2 days. We had to do some massive things to prepare for the reopening. As many of you, I'm sure, know, there was a thick piece of guidance that came out on the 29th as far as expectations for room dividers, child staff ratios, PPE equipment, all of that. So we took 2 days, Thursday and Friday, to thoroughly sanitize our center from top to bottom, to put up room dividers, to ensure that we had staff and children assigned appropriately to fit within those child staff ratios, and meet with staff, we do a check-in with staff again, thank them for what they did to help us get through the pandemic, to support our first responders who have given so much of themselves throughout this pandemic. And just to let them know that we're entering the next phase, and it's going to still be some uncertainty and things that we don't know, but their health and safety is a first priority, as well as the health and safety of the children and families that we serve here. So we opened on Monday, and unfortunately we didn't have all of the children, of course, because of the chain of events that occurred this weekend and with the city being shut down. So Monday and Tuesday, our enrollment was a little low, but I am happy to say that we have 39 children enrolled in our center currently. Now, they're not all here now, but we would expect that by Monday, all 39 children would be enrolled. So we have the capacity, we have 6 classrooms, and we divided 3. So now we have 9 classrooms where we're able to serve infants 6 weeks through children 5 years of age that are not kindergarten eligible. Staff is upbeat. The children are happy. We've put in some measures. When parents come in, they stay within the foyer area. We take temperatures of the parent, temperatures of the child. We have staff runners that take the children to their respective classrooms. Of course, they wash their hands prior to going to the classroom. And then upon pickup, we ask that the parent call so that we have time again to send a staff runner to go pick up the child, wash hands, return them to the parent, and they sign them out in our little foyer area downstairs. Staff has PPE equipment. The teachers have indicated that they do not want to wear it. They have all been issued face masks, face shields, gloves. They just said that in caring for the children and because of their age, that they feel that it is better that they're able to see their facial expressions and that the children are able to hear them and to be guided. And so far, we have been very blessed. We have had no episodes with any of our staff in the ECE program, and we're just happy to be of service, excited that we've gotten through this and we're still able to be here for our families. Now, the transition piece, I do want to share that in the midst of the pandemic piece and reopening, we started with 42 families. During the pandemic, we had 21, and now we have 39. We did have about 10 families that did not want to return at this time. But as a result of being a pandemic center, we did bring in 9 additional families. So ultimately, we only lost 1 family throughout this. So we're doing well here at Merrick House. And thank you for allowing me to share.
Thanks a lot, Michelle. Merrick House and Urban Community have been partners for a long time. 2 boys, one still enrolled at Merrick House and one who's now here with me at Urban, but great organization, and appreciate your leadership on all those fronts. It's been a very challenging few months, especially for childcare centers. So thanks for that. So I want to talk a little bit about Urban's initial response, Urban Community Schools' initial response, and then I really want to lay out the questions on our minds as a school as we think about the fall. So like every school, we had to pivot very quickly in March. And there were really 3 initial priorities. One was to get some type of device to every child in the school. So we sent home over 400 Chromebooks, and it was twofold. One, we wanted to make sure that we did continue learning and we stayed connected with kids. We were also very much committed to getting devices home because of safety reasons. We were worried that kids were not going to be able to contact someone if they were in trouble or if they needed something. And so it was twofold that we rolled out devices to make sure that every kid, not just every household, had access to some device. Obviously that depleted all of our devices and then some, but thanks to some generous folks, we were able to do that. And then the second piece of that, of course, was getting internet into homes. And we have spoken a lot about the digital divide as a society over the last couple of months. It's a big deal. It's one that we need to tackle as a community. So we were actually in a position where we were on the phone with Spectrum, getting families individually connected and having donors sponsor different families to make sure every house had internet access through this time. It was very tedious. It's not the most efficient solution by any stretch. But we were focused on it, and we knew that our faculty were willing to step up and create some decent online platform learning, but it would all be for naught if we couldn't connect kids. So, and then the third piece is we became, as a school, a food distribution site almost overnight. We have to date served over 25,000 meals. We have given away bikes and diapers and hygiene kits, school supplies. I mean, just about everything that we could take in and then distribute out. So really proud of our initial response, as I think a lot of schools are. It's been impressive to watch, and I don't think any school administrator could say enough about their faculties right now. I would submit that our faculty did probably 3 years of professional development on the fly in less than a month. And we knew that if we didn't build confidence early on in the online process and connect to families quickly, that we could lose them for the remainder of the school year. And so we had a very busy couple of weeks when the announcement first came down. We're lucky to have a spring break scheduled in there that we were able to work through and get ourselves set up. And so we were only down from some connected school for 5 school days in the end. Mixed results, we did see a reasonably high percentage of engagement. We took a daily exit ticket that families or kids submitted depending on their age level. So for some context, we have 580 kids from preschool through the 8th grade. So the exit ticket varied depending on the age level, but we saw, days with as high as 78, 80% engagement and other days that were lower. And we also certainly saw fatigue set in, that the longer we went on, and our last day was last Friday, the lower our engagement numbers were. Because clearly kids were tired, parents were tired, caretakers. And so we did certainly see a fall off as time went on. So let me go into a few of the questions based on these last 10 weeks, give some context for how we're thinking about August. Right now, my advice to our leadership team, our staff, our faculty, is to take a break and really encourage just to shut down over the next couple of weeks in June especially. There have been so many possible scenarios that have been rolled out. And our message has been, right now, they're just going to make us all crazy as we try to think about planning for all these different possibilities. Let's take a break, wait for some guidance, and then we can reconvene once the governor's office and ODE, the Ohio Department of Ed, have given some better instructions. So that's the spot that we're in now. We have an 8th grade parade tonight, and that's really the last event related to the school. Let me talk about the different constituencies and the way we're thinking about moving forward. So talk about 4 pillars, essentially. First is students, second is caretakers and parents, third is faculty and staff, and then fourth, I'll talk broadly about the organization and the challenges that we see organizationally. So students is a really interesting group, and it's the constituency that we all have to start with. I saw 12 8th graders last Thursday, and I've been doing home visits for years and years. It was the first time that I saw all 12 kids that I was charged with going to see. They were there, they had questions, they were glad to see me, which isn't always the case in a K-8 setting. And they were interested, you know, they wanted to know how the school was, how their teachers were doing. They clearly expressed missing kids and their friends. And so we're very much aware that kids have not, I'm sure some have, but majority have not enjoyed this any more than the adults have, that they do want to be back. They understand the need to go virtual. But there was a sense, certainly amongst our middle school students anyway, that they wanted to be together again, and they especially missed these celebrations that come with the end of our 8th grade year. So just, I think all of us feel terribly for kids who are graduating, seniors in high school, seniors in college, and our 8th graders who are moving on. You know, they just were not able to be together in the way that they would have liked in the end. I would also say, you know, in relation to the events of this weekend, that, so I was here when Sandy Hook happened. I remember those conversations very vividly with students after that event. I remember the Pittsburgh shooting at the synagogue and how we processed that with students, the Tamir Rice shooting, and now these recent deaths of George Floyd. And, you know, I would say that I really missed them the last couple of days too, because, you know, we process these things together as communities, and kids know what is going on, and they oftentimes process these things with their teachers and with their friends. And there has been a real gap in that that I have felt over the last couple of days, wishing that we were together and in circles to be able to talk about racism and to be able to talk about you know, the injustices that are so front and center in our world right now. And I think we need to think about that too for kids, you know, that school is a place where they process and they talk and they engage and they share ideas. Obviously we teach math and reading and English language arts and you know, social studies, all these other things. But it's also a place where we have these difficult conversations, and the isolation, I think, is felt that much more these couple days as it was even before, under the pandemic. So we're thinking a lot about kids, and we want to get them back, but obviously it's not that simple, and there's some other complicating factors. We also need to be honest with kids that school isn't going to be what they knew it to be. A lot of questions about extracurriculars, athletics, art programming, theater programs that we run, partnerships that we run after school. You know, there's a lot of TBDs there that help create the experience of getting an education today, that all of which are really up in the air. And so trying to prepare kids as we move through the summer to set their own, manage their own expectations about what it's going to be and how we communicate with our students, I think is going to be really critical. The second group is parents, and I think Michelle made some really good points about this. You know, parents need to be a critical piece of the conversation as we think about going back. You know, what do they want? What level of safety are they looking for? I don't think attendance in the fall is a layup. Obviously, there are a lot of families that just want to get kids back and have a lot of different needs and need to get kids back in school. But but they're looking for safety as well. And they are not going to send their kids back into a situation that they don't deem to be safe and secure. And so talking with our families about what that looks like for them, what are their expectations for us as an organization, and then all of these logistical questions. If we do end up in a situation where we have A days and B days, would families prefer that, or would they prefer every morning and then off in the afternoon, or 2 days back to back and then 2 days off? Those are all major logistical questions that we'll still need to work through. And we can't do it in a vacuum without talking to parents who are responsible and working their own jobs and having to drop off and pick up and navigate all of the logistics of life. So trying to have that conversation and survey parents and have some critical voices in our parent community to help guide us as we think about that is something also very critical. Faculty and staff. So, again, faculties, in my opinion, have just been overwhelmingly remarkable in their response. And watching our teachers step up and just engage kids and families in a way that no one could have foreseen was remarkable. We want to get them back, but we have obviously significant responsibilities to them too. And, what it looks like for the workforce, how we make sure that we are able to screen everyone coming into the building, make sure that we manage dismissal and arrival in appropriate ways for them, maintain social distancing as best we can with 570 kids in a school building. There's some really critical questions organizationally and how we talk with staff. The other thing about staff is, all of us work with people who are susceptible to COVID-19, and many of whom live with people who are susceptible. So there are some really important questions that need to be asked about what is safe for staff and how do we make sure our buildings and our setup allows people to feel confident coming back to work. So we launched a series of 3 surveys. The first one goes out today. We work with an organization called Tiny Pulse that helps us pick up data from our employees, just starting to garner their feedback about their concerns for August. And then the last one is just organizationally. And there's huge questions that we have, many of which relate to costs and finances, of course. But what are our tech costs going to be? What are our cleaning costs going to be? Are we in a situation where we're going to have to pay for a significant amount of substitutes if different people are sick or families have somebody who gets sick and need time off? The logistics of how many personnel you need to do this is daunting when you think about how much staff you need to maintain ratios of no more than 9 kids. And so, trying to get that set up. The other thing that schools can't do, as we've learned, is we can't run 2 schools. It's impossible to run an in-person school and a virtual school. It's just, you stretch people too thin, and there's no way you would do either one very well. And so a couple things that we've talked about is, if we do have to run an A/B day scenario situation, could we live stream so that 9 kids are in the classroom with the teacher, 9 are at home, but they're getting the same content every day, so you can still run a quasi-normal curriculum calendar and keep up with the learning. But again, what are the tech costs? What's the professional development that we need to make that happen? Are the families going to have what they need to log into that? And then we pride ourselves on this whole child approach, and we're looking at a situation where we have no volunteers. We likely don't have any field trips. We have no idea what transportation is going to look like and what those restrictions are going to be. We own one bus and 1 van, but social distancing and the transportation world is going to be a really critical issue. And we don't know who all is going to be directing us. What combination of the governor's office, Ohio Department of Ed, Cuyahoga County Department of Public Health, Department of Health, and the City of Cleveland Department of Health. So there's a lot of potential players. It looks like we're going to be given a lot of sort of freedom to hit certain benchmarks and guidelines. But until there's some more certainty around that, it's very difficult to plan in any concrete way without some clear direction. And I list for you all the questions we have, because at this point, that's really what they are. We know a bunch of different scenarios. We've thought through different possibilities, but until there is some clearer direction in terms of what the expectations are, this list of questions is really what we have as a pre-K-8 school to think about. So we're hoping for direction as soon as possible. Glad to see the governor make an announcement signaling that schools will be open in August yesterday, but a long way to go before we open those doors safely and soundly and fill up a school building.
Tom and Michelle, thank you for sharing your thoughts and experiences as you navigate these kind of uncertain spaces with the work you provide. We have had a few questions come in that I'd like to share. To start, Michelle, Tom mentioned a lot of questions around how do you create that safety and that security for families as their students enter back into the school space. So as you look to the expansion and reopening of the daycare facility, how are you approaching and your team approaching creating some of those safe spaces?
All right, what we did initially was we did a letter to all of our parents, letting them know that we were reopening, confirming if they were returning, and what the letter detailed what some of our safety features would be. And of course, from that led to individual calls or emails with further questions. A lot of the questions were around the staff wearing face masks, if their child could wear a face mask, and the fact that in responding to that, again, we spoke with the teachers so that we could give real life answers as to why the teachers didn't want to wear the masks, and that we would support the fact if a parent wanted their individual child to wear a mask. And we would talk about COVID-19. The teachers have done that with the preschoolers, of course, where it's age appropriate. So again, keeping the lines of communication open and being very responsive to parents as they have questions. We've got signs in the hallway so that they come in a certain way, they go out a certain way. The first day, what we did was when the parents dropped off, we allowed all parents to go to their child's classroom because things look different here than they did prior to the pandemic. So each parent got to take their own child to the classroom so they could see the safety features that were in place. They could see the dividers. They could see how things were laid out. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Tom, as you look ahead to the fall and dependent upon what that school environment looks like, are there any different approaches you might be taking to the classroom or educating differently, or things you've learned in having to be flexible that might stay as things move back towards the fall school year?
Yeah. So it's a really important question, and I think it's a silver lining in all of this. We got better as a school, not in the way that we would ever want to do again, but we've developed skill sets that we just did not have as a school-wide community. I mean, our use of Google Classroom is through the roof and will help us be a better school and a more organized school academically and a more data-informed school moving forward. We also launched a platform that is called Classdojo for our younger students that we found to be really easy for families to navigate. And when we initially launched, there were a couple golden rules. One, we wanted families to only have to log into one place to get everything they needed. If a middle schooler with 4 teachers was getting 4 different emails every day or every other day, we knew it was just going to be really difficult for families to navigate and track. So we simplified it as much as we could, got down to these 2 platforms depending on the child's age. So things like that we'll certainly learn, and skills that we've built that we will move forward. The biggest challenge we had was trying to debate how much live instruction to have. And the reason is we knew that a lot of our older siblings had childcare responsibilities. And so it wasn't possible for some of our older kids to log in at 10 o'clock every day just because they had too much other stuff to worry about. So we provided a lot of pre-recorded content and gave a 24-hour window for kids to watch videos, do their work. So again, you're thinking constantly about the family. That went over very well in terms of families' abilities to manage the work. The downside is a lot of learning comes through conversation, and you would much prefer to have an entire class logged in, talking with one another, seeing their teacher every day. But it's just not always possible depending on the family situation. So I do think that balance is something that will continue to keep moving forward.
And Michelle, through Merrick House, you provide other programs and services. Are you still able to provide those? What are the status of the other resources through the community center?
Actually, yes. Our Moms First program is working remotely. They are not doing home visits, but they are engaging with pregnant moms through video chats, be it Facebook, FaceTime, whatever platform the family has available. And we are a Shoes and Clothes for Kids distribution partner. Tremont West Development Corp has been very instrumental in a drive to make sure that during that shortage of formula and diapers and wipes, that our pregnant moms who are not able to find those items, we were able to provide those for them. So we have also utilized some other funding because a lot of our funders have been very gracious and allowed us to use some of our funding specifically for basic needs. So we've done food bags for families that have needs. We're a Hunger Network partner, and we were able to serve some of our childcare families, again, that had food needs through that mechanism as well. And then St. Theodosia's Church also provides us with food bags as well. We also, MedWorks reached out to us, and in an effort to assist the area restaurants, they partnered, so we have gift certificates for clients to either eat at La Bodegas or the South Side, and both of those restaurants are open, so we'll start distributing those now. So yes, and then we've got gracious parents that also, when we needed PPE equipment and we're having a hard time finding that initially, we had donations that were just showing up. So we've got a great network of support, and we're very appreciative of that.
And for both of your organizations and the students that you serve, with students who might have special needs or special education needs, have you found some successful approaches to working with them and their families throughout the past few weeks?
And actually, Tom, I'll let you start.
So to be very clear, these are the students that have lost the most in this, in my opinion. It has been very difficult. So we have tried to do as much one-on-one, with our special ed students, but it's been hard, and they're used to getting a lot of attention that they need and deserve, and when you're not with them every day, it's been a real challenge. So our next, we try to do as much one-on-one virtually with our intervention specialists as we possibly could. The next step was that we opened our summer camp, which we will run a summer camp in July, first to that group of students, because if they want to be here, we want them here to try and maximize the time in July. When you think about a traditional summer learning loss, and you add to that, a COVID slide, that's a long time for kids to be set back. And so we're working very hard to run literacy specific camps in July, and to make sure that we can get to that group of students specifically as much as we possibly can. Critical issue, and one that I just don't think we have done enough on, not just at Urban, but I think schools across the board. This is something that, if we go virtual in the fall again, needs some better engagement and thought.
And then from the child care perspective, typically, if things were quote unquote normal, we would be working with Starting Point to aid the families who have children with special needs. But what we're seeing now, just because we deal with the younger children, are like behavioral issues. And due to the reduced class sizes, at least during the pandemic, we were able to really, the teacher was really able to give that individualized attention and to help curtail some of those behaviors. So we've kind of got a hold on some of them. Now that we are out of the pandemic and back into our ODJFS license, and things are really different from the pandemic license, we're really looking at how we're going to deal with some of those behavioral issues and support the parents as well.
So, and you both mentioned a partnership and collaboration between your two organizations. Can you share a little further what that partnership looks like?
It's taken a variety of forms over the years. Most recently we have advertised our food distribution at Merrick House. We serve very similar geographies, so we've had a lot of kids come from Merrick House into urban. Moms First, we think very highly of, and want to support that program as a school too. So I just say, because of geography and Michelle's leadership and how close we are, and frankly having my own kids there over the years, we've just been able to do different things together.
Yes, and then a lot of the children who are here, when they leave to go to kindergarten, we have a large amount of our families do go to urban community school. That also enhances the partnership.
And as you think about the challenges that your organizations are facing, that your families are facing, what are some of the things that keep you up at night? And how can we as a community help you with those challenges?
Well, funding always keeps a small nonprofit up at night. And when I say funding from the perspective that we do great work, but that great work can only continue through financial support to continue to pay the community health workers that do the home visits and support pregnant moms, to continue to pay the youth director that is working with youth, where while it's remotely, that on Monday we did a Zoom call to help them debrief, to share their thoughts and to put a plan of action together, and process the chain of events over the last couple of weeks. Funding makes that possible, and also through our adult education program, again, remotely occurring. And oddly enough, we've got more participants remotely than we did coming into the actual building when we were open. So again, funding makes all of that happen. So that's the main thing that keeps me up. What can the charge be for this group? You can make a donation to Merrick House. We're always, and not just a monetary donation, although that gives us the most bandwidth. We take clothes because we're a 211 site. We get calls all the time if families have fires. I think in the last year, we were able to service 4 families in clothing their children just because we had clothes here. So it's things like that, I mean, if you're cleaning out your home and you have items that you can donate to us, we'll take those. If you want to volunteer to help youth, our youth need mentoring and guidance more so now than ever. So if you have free time, please give us a call. We'll plug you in. And then even with adult education, while it's remotely, they still need tutors. They still need that one-on-one individual help. So those are some ways over and above just a monetary donation, although we welcome that as well.
Yeah, so absolutely to all those things. I would say the biggest thing that keeps me up at night is a potential domestic violence situation that nobody knows about, because kids aren't getting out of their houses. And there are so many challenging situations that get brought up by kids to school counselors and to school nurses and to teachers and to teacher assistants. That's my biggest fear, that we have kids in very challenging home situations that none of us know about and they can't tell anybody about. the safety ramifications of the isolation, I think are significant, and they're things that could really take a toll on some of our kids. I think we're going to see a lot of behavioral health challenges come out of this. You know, kids processing a whole new world, the threat of a pandemic, not having a community, like I mentioned before, to process the racism and the injustice that they're seeing on the news, without a community to help facilitate how they work through these really difficult issues. I think there's going to be a lot of sort of pent up downloading that needs to happen when kids get back to school. It's not as though we're going to, you know, send them to math class at 8:15 on August 20th or whatever it is and say, okay, you know, we're back, good luck. It's going to have to be a really sensitive, thoughtful return, and one that acknowledges how difficult these months have been for a lot of families. So those are but the isolated kid, I would say, more than anything else, is what keeps me up at night. And then as I wrote a note to staff today, you know, I've been kept up by helicopters flying over our city for the last couple of months. You know, it's incredible that we're having to navigate all of the social unrest on the back end of this pandemic. And so my guess is a lot of kids are up wondering what those helicopters mean too, along with so many of us adults. You know, if that's all going to come back into our schools, and if we're not ready for it and we're not prepared to work with kids and talk about these challenges and meet families where they are, that learning process is just going to be that much further delayed, because it's going to take a serious lift to get kids back into a learning zone when we're back up and running.
Well, Tom and Michelle, I thank you for your time today. And as one of the comments states, thank you for both sharing so openly and freely of both the joys and the challenges of your work during this time. And thank you for your leadership and the work of your teams in creating these safe and supportive spaces for our children, our families, as they get back online and get back to learning and being with each other. So we will also share the websites for both of your organizations in our follow-up email. So anyone who may be interested in following up and supporting your work can do so. And with that, I'm going to welcome back Mary Ann.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, Tom and Michelle, thank you for sharing the very sobering reality of the work that you do every day and how much harder and complex it is during these times. We're truly very fortunate to have both of you at the helm of your organizations and looking out for our children. So thank you for all that you do.